Prophecy Club, we had Rob Skiba in, and I'm going to have to say I think he was probably one of the best speakers we've had in the last several years. I really like that Rob Skiba, and I think you will too. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the audio of what I thought was one of his better talks, and it's the 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics are Genesis 6, the Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality as in the Mark of the Beast injection, and we've got a great gift offer going for you. You get all 3 of his DVDs valued at $90, all for a gift to the ministry of just $50. And keep in mind that we aren't in the ministry because we're distributing DVDs. We're in the ministry because of your prayers and your gifts of support. Now, let's go listen to 2045, the year man becomes immortal.
And he says, hey, I didn't know you were into the Nephilim stuff. When did you get into that? I said, well, I've kind of always been into it, but it really just recently, started really putting stuff out about it. He says, well, I'll tell you what, we got to meet. I'm coming back to Texas. I'm in New York now, and I know we haven't seen each other in a while, but let me take you out to lunch. I said, sure. So we go out to lunch, and he gives me this. He says, maybe this will help you with your research. I'm like, dude, yeah! This is a female Nephilim skull, I believe. This is actually a replica. It's plastic. It's not the real deal. But he knows a woman who had access to the actual skulls in Peru that made a really good cast of this thing and gave it to me. Now, what's really interesting, first of all, the shape of the skull. And I'll show you a picture in a minute that shows a normal person's skull superimposed over it, so you see how much more brain capacity this has. They do tests where they pour like salt or sand or something inside to see what the cranial capacity is, how much it is like in cc's compared to a normal human skull. And I forgot what this one was. It was somewhere between 20 and 40% more than a regular skull. But you can't see it from back there probably, but we have a frontal lobe, right, and 2 parietal and occipital plate. Well, this suture pattern is completely different. This has one going this way, and then another one going back this way, and some weird holes up here, and no suture pattern right here like you and I have. Putting boards on somebody's head is not going to change the suture pattern. This person was born this way, and this person inherited those genetic traits somehow. So my speculation is that the women who got on the ark may have looked like that. They had to get the traits somehow, right? Now, here's the difference between a female and a male. These are some of the male skulls that are a lot more robust, larger jaws and sometimes bigger heads and jawbones and whatnot, much more robust. Then news reports started coming out. This was just December of this past year, where they found a bunch of these skulls in Mexico. They said, this poor person unfortunately suffered from cranial deformation. I'm like, yeah, a little more than that, buddy. But they also found some very interesting things. There's a book by David Hatcher Childress and Brian Forrester called The Enigma of Cranial Deformation. And in that book, they give examples of different cases, such as this one right here. Here's a quote from their book. It says, two crania, both of children scarcely a year old, had in all respects the same form as those of adults. The same formation of the head presents itself in children yet unborn, and of this truth we have had convincing proof inside of a fetus enclosed in the womb of a mummy of a pregnant woman. So that's not headboarding. That's a 7-month-old fetus that was found inside the remains of a mummified pregnant woman. And this thing looks like alien. Okay, this creature was born, or is going to be born that way. People were born that way. This is the first, what I call the Home Alone baby. Oh no! I've got a cone head. I mean, look at the size of that kid's head compared to his body. Big, large, very unusual. Now again, this is what I think possibly the wives of Noah's 3 sons may have looked like. And you see on the left, there's you can see like the superimposed image of a normal person's skull over it. So you can see clearly the difference both in shape as well as brain capacity. And then they did some forensics on it and started building it up with clay and stuff to determine what this person may have physically looked like. She may have looked something like that, possibly. And perhaps that doesn't suit your fancy, so well, maybe she looks something like this. Okay? We're still emulating. It's still that's still emulation. All right? Now, minus the increased cranial capacity and brain capacity, they may have looked something like that. You know? What about, let's talk about the X-Men, right? They are mutants, right? They all have different abilities, and some of them are blended with, different creatures and whatnot, things like that. I found it really interesting that this particular character in the movies, the X-Men, this woman actually has 6 toes. So, kind of interesting. Just one of those little useless pieces of trivia bouncing around in my head. Now, some people think, well, that's absurd, Rob. Why would God allow Nephilim onto the ark? And I said, well, let's back up a minute and address the alternative, because the alternative is even worse. You say it's absurd for me to suggest that God allowed Nephilim women onto the ark. But I say it's more absurd to allow angels to just keep coming back and mate with women over and over again. I've already addressed the root cause. That deal was done with, according to the book of Enoch, 1 Enoch chapter 10, verses 10 through 12. Those angels were judged, bound, and buried. The judgment was so severe, no other angels are recorded as ever mating with women again, in the Bible or in any extra-biblical text either. So you guys are arguing from a position of textual silence. There's nothing to support what you're saying. But if angels mate with women and produce Nephilim, God wipes the whole world. What was it, just like a halftime show? Hey, angels, take a seat for a minute. I'm going to clean off the playing field. Okay, now it's clean. Come on back. Pick up where you left off. That's even more absurd than what I'm suggesting. I'm saying, no, some genetic codes made it through in probably recessive genes onto the ark with 3 women. And if that theory is true, and it's just a theory, but looking at Genesis 10, 6 through 20, there's no mention of angels anywhere in the picture. We know that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all pure. So how do we get all these ites that are all corrupted with no mention of angels anywhere? The only solution left to us is there had to be the women, in my opinion, that got on the ark. But there's a good thing here, because if that's true, that was actually God's divine sovereign wisdom in allowing that to happen, because women have 2 X chromosomes and men have an X and a Y chromosome. When we have children, the husband contributes a Y and the woman contributes one of her X's, you end up with a son, right? If the man contributes his X and she contributes one of her X's, you get a daughter. Well, you see what happens here. If you've got a completely normal male, like Shem, Ham, and Japheth, completely normal, and let's say a 50-50 hybrid female with one tainted X and one good X, you have a 50-50 chance that you're going to produce completely normal children. I believe this is not a race issue. This is an obedience issue. This is an obedience issue. I'm convinced of that. So, clearly, when you look at Shem's generation, or Shem's offspring, it must have fallen in favor of the 50% normal, because all of his kids are 100% normal. When you look at Japheth, you get a little bit of a mixture. He's got giants in his stuff, so you got some in there and you got good ones. Same thing with Ham. Not all of his kids were bad either. Mainly Canaan. Who was cursed, Ham or Canaan? Canaan. Right. Ham was not cursed. Canaan was cursed. Canaan has the giants. Now, there's one giant in Mitzrayim, but most of the rest of his kids are normal. There's no giants in Put's lineage, and in Cush's lineage, his kids are all good too, except for Nimrod, but he did something to himself to make himself become a giant. He changed himself. He wasn't born that way. Right? So you see how the percentages played out. And this is called a Punnett square in biology, putting it together. Now, if you believe in multiple incursions, you've got a really big problem, because this is what you end up with. If you've got a fallen angel inserting both bad Y and X chromosomes into the human genome, you've got one big mess to deal with after that. So I would strongly contend that my opponent's theory is way more absurd than what I'm suggesting, and way more detrimental to the human genome as well. Now, when it comes to giants, I'm looking for empirical evidence. How does this giantism work? I mean, how does it work? Do we have any examples? Well, yeah, actually we do. Have you ever heard of the Liger? Well, this is their website, liger.com. This is the front page. Notice on the bottom there, they named the Ligers after the Nephilim. Hercules, Zeus, Sinbad, Vulcan. Watch this video concerning Ligers.
This big guy is a Liger. Yes, a Liger. And trainer Doc Antle and his partner Rajani have the biggest one in the world.
This is Hercules, who is our Liger boy, 900 pounds and 12 feet tall. He's a gigantic kid because he's a Liger. Father lion, mother tiger, makes him...
Father is a lion, mother is a tiger.
Makes him the Liger.
Hercules is skilled at, well, eating about 100 pounds of meat a day.
Everything about him seems exaggerated. They seem to live longer, They eat more. We've never seen anything happen in the Ligers except bigger, stronger, faster. It's theorized that Ligers are this enormous size because the inhibitor growth gene exists in the female lion and in the male tiger. So when you switch around and you get a male lion breeding with a female tiger, creating the liger, you get this gigantic size. Nothing tells it when to stop. In the wild, this enormous size wouldn't necessarily be of any advantage because it would require so much more food. Samson here can readily eat 25 pounds of food in a sitting, where an adult lion can subside on 7 to 10 pounds of food.
That's solid empirical evidence of gigantism, how it works. Did you catch what they said? The growth inhibitor gene is in the female lion and in the male tiger. So when you mate a male lion with a female tiger, there's no gene to tell them when to stop growing. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as turning off a genetic code or removing it, and you end up with giants. And I think hybridization produces things like that, just as you see in this empirical, solid evidence right here with giants. So it's not as mystical as it might at first seem to you, right? It makes sense, actually, how things like that can happen. There's a growth inhibitor gene in me that said Rob Skiba stopped growing at about 5'10.5" when he was 16 years old. You have one in you that told you when to stop growing at whatever age you were. Some of the giants in the Bible clearly, or all the giants in the Bible clearly didn't have, either didn't have that gene or it was somehow turned off through some sort of hybridization process. See, it's not as mystical as you might think. Now, let's talk about post-flood chimeras, a blending of species and things like that. This image right here, black obelisk of Shalmaneser.
We'll be right back after this message. In the Rob Skiba gift offer, his first DVD is Mythology, UFOs, and the Coming Great Deception. Topics are Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek pantheons, the Coming Great Deception, UFOs and aliens, interdimensional portals, transhumanism, and the quest to be like gods, giants and hybrids. And in Babylon Rising, the topics are the signs in the heavens, Babylon in the last days, New World Order conspiracies, secret societies, and the occult's obsession with the numbers 322, tetrads or blood red moons in the eclipses in the days ahead, the feasts of God and how they relate to the last days, the tribulation survival plan, and 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics will be Genesis 6 Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality, all 3 DVDs valued at $90, available for a gift of just $50 at prophecyclub.com. In Doug Hamp's new DVD, The Injection of the Beast, in the last days, it will be as in the days of Noah. Angels were mixing their seed with humanity, and it's happening again. That's demons and humans having sexual relations, masquerading as aliens, are actually creating Nephilim hybrids for the body of the Antichrist. Then in The Fall Feast and Prophecy, he tells the story of how Jesus fulfilled the first 4 feasts at his first coming and how he will fulfill the next 3 in return on some future Rosh Hashanah. The Day of Atonement pictures the opening of the books and the judgment of those dead and alive. The Feast of Tabernacles pictures us receiving our mansions. Both DVDs valued at $60 for a gift of just $40 or more in the Hamp gift offer. Remember, the Prophecy Club continues because of your prayers and gifts of support, not the distribution of DVDs. And now, back to the program.
A blending of species and things like that. This image right here, black obelisk of Shalmaneser III, is an individual mentioned in 2 Kings 17:3. On this black obelisk of Shalmaneser III, you see an elephant that's a full-grown elephant. You can tell by the length and size of its tusk. Okay, and then right behind the elephant, you have a lion man. A man has a lion body with like human hands and a human head. And he's on a leash, and if that's a full-grown elephant, the dude walking as lion man is pretty huge, because I don't know if you can see it, but the image cuts off at the guy's shoulders, which is about the same height as the top of the elephant. So there's a giant walking his cute little pet lion man. And we have mention of lion men actually in 2 Samuel 23:20, the lion men of Moab. Lion men of Moab, right there in your Bible. The Hittites, their name means the terrors, were fond of putting depictions like this in stone. This is another variety of lion man it's a lion with wings, has a lion head and a human head with a snake tail. They have other depictions like this one right here that shows two satyrs, half man, half goat, in the middle, with a different variety of lion man, human body with a lion or cat head. Okay, so, but when you're seeing images like this, what's really interesting to me is when you look through the scriptures and you see things like Abraham and his wife, Sarah. When Sarah died, Abraham was negotiating for a burial plot for his wife. And it says in multiple places in Genesis that he negotiated with an individual named Ephron of the Hittites. Well, the Hittites means terrors. They're making depictions like this in stone all over the place, showing chimera, and Ephron's name means fawn-like. So it appears to be saying in the Hebrew that Abraham negotiated with a satyr for a burial plot for his wife amongst the Hittites who were the terrors. Wild stuff in your Bible. It's very interesting. That's what these talks have done for us as we've gone around and told these talks. It's gotten people excited to go back into their Bible again, because it is full of wild stuff. It's extremely interesting, and that's my hope here today, is that you will get just as excited to go dive in as well. And I give you kind of a pathway to do that in the book. It's showing you a bunch of different examples of things. But there are other examples of different varieties of lion creatures that are hybrids, like the Persian Greek griffin right there on the left, the charioteer of Delphi on the right. It's like the Sphinx. And then, of course, you've got the famous centaurs and things like that in the Greek mythology. So they're all over the place. All right. Oh, and this is the one of the most famous sculptures of the ancient world. It's known as the Chimera of Arezzo. It's a famous sculpture of the Roman era right there. Now, let's talk about, we're going to transition now into the last days and talk about in 2045 and all that good stuff. Last days, return of the Nephilim. Now, I first need to differentiate between the days of Jared and the days of Noah. What did Jesus say the last days would be like? The days of who? Days of Noah, not Jared. Okay? The days of Jared were marked by the mating of angels and humans. That happened in his day. However, it was in the days of Noah that the creation of animal-human hybrids brought about the corrupting of all flesh we read about in Genesis 6:12, which ultimately led to God's judgment with the flood. So if I was to take Jesus' words literally in Matthew 24:37, as it was in the days of Noah, all I have to do is turn on the evening news. There, you're seeing the regular blending of animals and humans. You're not seeing reports of angels mating with humans, as it was in the days of Jared. But you are seeing the creation and the corruption of all flesh, aren't you? On a regular basis. Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to a discussion of transhumanism, which I believe is a doctrine of devils. We see in Genesis 3, 4, and 5, "And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." We covered this in the previous session, but I want to drive the point home here. Promises of the serpent, there were three. Immortality, eyes being open, having greater wisdom and understanding, and you shall be as gods. Remember what I said in the previous session? They already had all three. They were already immortal. Death came after they took a bite. The eyes open, they walked with God. They didn't need any greater wisdom and understanding. All they had to do was ask the Creator who hung out with them in the cool of the day. Be like God, they were made in the image and likeness of God already. So the devil tricked them into giving up three things they already had, and man has been trying to get those things back ever since. Many times apart from God. Remember I mentioned a guy by the name of Nick Bostrom. Keep these three promises in mind as you hear this clip. You heard it yesterday, but I'm just going to take a snippet from one of the clips you saw in the other session. Three promises: immortality, greater wisdom and understanding, and ye shall be as gods. Out of the mouth of Professor Nick Bostrom.
What I'm really interested in is to try to understand the bigger picture for humanity, our place in the world, and what might lie in store for our species in the future. Particularly the way we might use technologies to enhance ourselves, or to go beyond what we currently think of as our human nature, whether it might be by radically extending the human lifespan through solving the problem of aging, or increasing our intellectual capacities, improving our memory, or taking control of our own emotional states. I think that we are right now in a transitional phase where before the end of this century we will either have gone extinct, or we will have most likely taken the step to become what you might call transhumans or posthumans, or just very enhanced humans that have reached their full potential.
The three promises of Lucifer in the same order from one of the leading spokespersons of transhumanism. Wow. I mean, what do you do with that? This is a chart I showed you in one of the previous sessions, what their ambition is. The lower right corner there, it shows what senses are available to humans, what we can see, hear, taste, touch, smell. Animals have different senses than we do, so that's the longer gray one on the bottom there. And he says, well, if we blend humans together with animals, we may be able to get enhanced abilities and new senses, so we'll have, that larger circle there, what's accessible to transhumans. And if we keep messing with the genome, we're going to get better at it, and then this big circle here, that's what's going to be available to us as post-humans. We will be like the gods. That's what's happening today, right now, in universities around the world.
Plans to allow scientists to create embryos that are part human and part animal are set for approval by the official regulator in Britain. These hybrid embryos are seen by the country's leading scientists as a vital step in the search for cures for diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It's a highly controversial procedure and is banned in some European countries. Our medical correspondent Fergus Walsh has the story.
This embryo is part mouse, part cow. In a few months, this Newcastle lab is hoping to create a human-cow hybrid. This is highly complex science, the creation of cytoplasmic hybrids, known as cybrid embryos. The starting point is a cow's egg, which is cut open by a laser. The DNA is sucked out. The next step is to take a human cell, perhaps from a patient with Parkinson's disease, and inject it into the egg. Now this is the crucial point at which an embryo is created, because by using an electric shock, the hybrid embryo starts growing, the cells subdividing. In reality, it's smaller than a pinhead, and when it's just 6 days old, the embryo shell is broken open. Inside are stem cells, the body's master cells. The ultimate aim is to reprogram them into any tissue in the body. For example, nerve cells, heart cells, or brain cells. Scientists say this research is of profound importance and could lead to new treatments for a host of diseases, like diabetes and Alzheimer's. But all this is years away. The science is just beginning.
Inside this barn is a herd of cows that evolution could never have produced.
What a sight! Every animal here is a clone. They're all genetic copies of just 2 original cows created in the lab. They were created by genetic engineering in the hope of saving human life.
Hey!
Antibodies are produced by our bodies to fight disease. They can destroy lethal infections like SARS and poisons like botulism. But no one has found a way to mass produce them until now. Dr. Roebel's calves are worth up to $500,000 each. They have human DNA inside them. Their future is to be milked for their blood. This is the world's first antibody extraction parlor. For 2 hours every week or so, these precious cows are connected to pumps that filter their blood and extract human antibodies.
The ultimate goal is to, say, take anthrax, expose the cow to anthrax, inject it with anthrax, at which point it starts making lots of antibodies against anthrax. And then you can collect those antibodies, purify them, and treat people who have been exposed to anthrax.
But it's no easy job to get cows to produce human antibodies. You have to genetically modify the cow's immune system to make it at least partly human. Dr. Roebel has had to copy 2 sets of genes out of our DNA, which he then combines into a package called a microchromosome. But to get that microchromosome into the cow, he's had to use one of the most complex cut-and-paste jobs I've ever heard of.
Take the microchromosome and you transfer it from mouse cells to chicken cells. Okay, and this is a specific chicken cell line that allows you to cut and paste chromosomes. And the best way to carry this chromosome is actually in a hamster cell line. So then it goes to a hamster cell line. We then transfer it to the cow cell line.
So let me just get this straight. To make a human chromosome, you have to go through mice, chickens, hamsters, and then cows.
And then finally cows, yes.
Wow.
Because each cell type has its own peculiar but specific quality that allows us to do a specific kind of manipulation.
These cows take blood donation to a whole new level. Just 10 or 20 of them could supply the yearly worldwide demand for one of Dr. Robles' antibody therapies. And it's the kind of advance that only genetic engineering could have given us.
But in order to really take advantage of the technology, we're going to have to embrace it.
But in order to take advantage of this technology, we're going to have to embrace it. Moron. That's dangerous. Do you hear what they say? To get a human chromosome, we got to go through mice, hamsters, chickens, and cows. Well, to get a human, we got human chromosomes. What did Genesis 6:12 say, right? All flesh should become corrupted. You want a cow-human hybrid for you? It's called a minotaur. Right? We saw in Joshua 4:18 and Jubilee 7:24 how the corruption of all flesh took place by doing exactly what Dr. Robles and company are doing. Corrupting the human genome and that of all other creations as well. Again, I'm going to point to this. I believe that corrupting the image leads to opening forbidden gates that may bring about the creation of Nephilim, or in other words, that which has fallen from its original state that God created it to be. I found it really interesting that, they're talking about antibodies and blood and all that stuff. Well, I did a little search on Bible.cc for a keyword search on blood, and it showed that there's 435 occurrences of that word in the Bible. 435.
Time has run out, but I want to say thank you for listening, and thank you for your prayers and your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. In the Rob Skiba gift offer, his first DVD is Mythology, UFOs, and the Coming Great Deception. Topics are Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek pantheons, the Coming Great Deception, UFOs and aliens, interdimensional portals, transhumanism, and the quest to be like gods, giants and hybrids. And in Babylon Rising, the topics are the signs in the heavens, Babylon in the last days, New World Order conspiracies, secret societies, and the occult's obsession with the numbers 322, tetrads or blood red moons in the eclipses in the days ahead, the feasts of God and how they relate to the last days, the tribulation survival plan, and 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics will be Genesis 6 Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality, all 3 DVDs valued at $90, available for a gift of just $50 at prophecyclub.com. In Doug Hamp's new DVD, The Injection of the Beast, in the last days, it will be as in the days of Noah. Angels were mixing their seed with humanity, and it's happening again. That's demons and humans having sexual relations, masquerading as aliens, are actually creating Nephilim hybrids for the body of the Antichrist. Then in The Fall Feast and Prophecy, he tells the story of how Jesus fulfilled the first 4 feasts at his first coming and how he will fulfill the next 3 in return on some future Rosh Hashanah. The Day of Atonement pictures the opening of the books and the judgment of those dead and alive. The Feast of Tabernacles pictures us receiving our mansions. Both DVDs valued at $60 for a gift of just $40 or more in the HAMP gift offer. Remember, the Prophecy Club continues because of your prayers and gifts of support, not the distribution of DVDs. The Prophecy Club's famous summer blowout is about to end. Right now, you can still get 6 DVDs of your choice, normally valued at over $180, all for a gift to the ministry of just $100. The offer expires August the 31st. Not available on the internet, you gotta call 785-266-1112. 6 DVDs for a gift of $100 or more. Ends August 31st, 785-266-1112.